Okay.
challenging, but I'm so glad you're involved.
I did a long walk.
No, I'm here for moral support, Mike.
Are you giving me a hard time?
No, I'm here for moral
I'm
support.
gonna stand next to Ed.
I can do one, Senator Hassan.
First of all, let me welcome everybody to Henry J. Sweeney Post American Legion. I belong to all the organizations, but I thought I'd wear my Vietnam hat today. We're honored today to have not only one, but two outstanding senators. And they're going to give us the straight scoop. Senator Hassan, first Maggie. I know her personally, so I'll call her Maggie.
Maggie is good. Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm going to try to get this so that I can just make sure I'm covering what I intended to. So good morning, everybody. Look, I'm here along with Senator Shaheen and along with these wonderful veterans, true American heroes, to really focus on the fact that Granite Staters are becoming alarmed about the Trump administration's reckless actions that will weaken our capacity to serve our veterans. While we can't fully repay our veterans for the sacrifices they've made, we have an obligation to try. And one of the ways we can do that is to make sure that they have access to the care and benefits that they've earned and that they deserve. But instead of supporting our veterans, the Trump administration has issued orders that will hobble the VA's ability to support those who have served by dismantling the department's workforce. As you all know, I sit on the Senate Veteran Affairs Committee, and we have become growingly concerned about the recklessness of this administration's actions. Should the president go through with his plan to cut 80,000 staff from the VA, nearly 1/5 of all VA employees, these are people who help veterans get the care and the benefits that they've earned, the consequences to veterans could be truly devastating. In addition to doctors and nurses, VA staff perform indispensable work to help process claims, connect veterans with care and benefits, answer phones, and assist with any question or challenge that the veterans may have. I don't know of any veteran in New Hampshire or elsewhere who thinks that the VA will be better with longer wait times for care and for service. I'm grateful to many of the leaders and veterans who are here today whose determined advocacy helped pass the landmark PACT Act into law. That was an act, of course, that allows more veterans to get the care and benefits that they've earned and deserve. Its special focus was on veterans who've been impacted by burn pits during their service or exposure to other toxic substances. And you all may recall that passing that bill, which was a bipartisan bill, took concerted, ongoing, long-lasting advocacy by veterans themselves, some of whom camped outside the Capitol building, to make sure that we heard their voices and heard their call for these critical services. So there's now, because of the PACT Act, a surge of claims for health care and for benefits, which is exactly what we intended when we passed the PACT Act. But instead of helping us build up the workforce that we know we need to serve this new cohort of veterans, the Trump administration is weakening this service by saying that by the end of the summer, they plan to cut that 80,000 staff, that 1 out of 5 employees at the Veterans Administration. And just to give you a bit of context here, over 2 million new claims under the PACT Act have come in since we passed that law, and about 200,000 veterans are newly enrolled in health care because of that law. So again, we need to be increasing our workforce and making sure we're ready for these new enrollees, not cutting 1 in 5. Above all else, the consequences of any specific cut. What concerns me too is that what this reflects about the Trump administration's priorities. It is deeply concerning that the Trump administration would even consider trying to weaken the VA and reduce the number of staff to serve veterans, let alone actually issue this chaotic and destructive order. As I think you all know, my dad served in World War II, and he instilled in me that we owe everything in this country, everything, to the heroes who risked their lives for our freedoms. The Trump administration needs to reverse course, and it needs to commit to working together on a bipartisan basis to support our veterans. America deserves nothing less. Our veterans deserve more than anything that we keep our commitment to them. And now I'm going to turn the podium over to my colleague, Senator Shaheen, whose advocacy for our veterans is second to none.
Well, thank you. Thank you for organizing today's event, and thank you for your leadership on the Veterans Committee. It makes a true difference. As Senator Hassan said, I believe, like she does, that America has a sacred bargain with our veterans. They served in our armed forces, and we agreed to honor and care for them after their service, especially since many of them carry the wounds and harm they incurred during that service. Therefore, we owe excellent care and sufficient benefits to our veterans. These planned firings will not help provide either, quite the contrary. Firing more than 80,000 VA employees, and I use the number 8, more than 80,000 because they've already fired 1,000. That will harm our veterans and our communities. And as Senator Hassan said, that's 1 in 5 of our employees at the VA. And, you know, Secretary Collins insults our intellect when he says, we're going to fire over 80,000 employees, and then we're going to provide better services to our veterans. Come on, nobody believes that that's going to be the case. We're not going to fire over 80,000 people and provide better services. As Senator Hassan says, we're going to be able to provide fewer services. And I've heard from many New Hampshire veterans and their families, including VA employees, about how the previous rounds of layoffs and cuts have affected them. Numerous veterans have contacted our office to express their concerns that the VA employees they have come to know and rely on might be fired. For example, a number of veterans experiencing mental health issues, including PTSD, have expressed their fears that the provider who is working with them will shortly be fired. This in a time when we are still losing 17 veterans a day to suicide. And for anyone who's living through mental health issues, finding a professional you can trust and depend on can be a difficult experience. One veteran said that he finally found a provider who can help him with his complex mental health challenges. He said, she gets him and his problems, and she never stops working for him. This veteran made the very good point that New Hampshire veterans need more help, not less. Another veteran contacted me to let me know that some of the friendly VA staff at the vet center that she visits are gone. They were fired. And now she finds it harder to go to the vet center without people she knows because her PTSD makes her wary of new situations. I've also heard from VA employees who are concerned about not just their job, but how the agency's mission is going to be affected by this significant cut in personnel. But sadly, many are afraid to speak out for fear of retaliation, and that's why we're so pleased to have the folks who are here with us today who are willing to say what's really going on. And I want to raise another issue that's affecting veterans, because about 1/3 of the federal employees across government are veterans. They've gone into service because that's their mission, that's been their life's work. First in the military and then in the federal government. So they're being disproportionately affected by what Elon Musk and his Doge boys are doing. There is no doubt, as Senator Hassan said, our veterans deserve better. So now, let me recognize Christine Breen, who's representing the National Association of Government Employees. Christine.
Good morning, everyone. The National Association of Government Employees, better known as NAGE, was created in July of 1961. It was previously known as FEBA, or the Federal Employees Veterans Association. Executive Order 10988 was signed by President Kennedy in January 17th of 1962. Became a monumental time in history when the federal employee first obtained the right to engage in collective bargaining through labor organizations. Over the course of many years came the creation of multiple additional executive orders, reform acts, the creation of various authorities, U.S. Constitution and federal statutes and regulations, and Supreme Court decisions, all supporting labor relations and collective bargaining. NAGE stands strong today, well beyond President Kennedy's executive order 10988, enacted well over 60 years now. NAGE, as well as other highly recognized and respected union groups, are still actively engaging in collective bargaining today. The National Association of Government Employees will continue to represent the federal employee when faced with challenges to their working conditions, benefits, and overall rights in order to yield agreements to maintain the health, safety, and working conditions of the employees who carry out the agency's missions we all mutually support. Over the course of the past few months, I have had the honor of getting to meet those staff who are doing just that. They are unwavered in their desire to look past what is going on in the government and the media, to look beyond the threats and attacks to their jobs, and to stay focused on the mission in front of them, the utmost mission to serve our veteran population as best they can. Our strength will prevail. I and everyone connected to the National Association of Government Employees will stand beside you every step of the way. We will never stop fighting for what is fair and just, only some of the values that unite us. 80,000 veteran supported employees are at threat, and we will not step away nor step down. We will still remain there for you at all times. And on that note, please allow me to introduce Elizabeth Lizzie Harkins. She is a representative of the American Federation of Government Employees, better known as AFGE.
I didn't type it out. I typed it on my phone. Give me one sec. I'm getting all technical on myself, using my tools.
Very high tech.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. First, I want to extend my gratitude to our senators, the Honorable Maggie Hassan and Honorable Jean Keating. I'm emotional because this is our jobs. These are our jobs. I represent 1,600 bargaining unit employees under Local 2604 out of White River Junction. I'm a tri-state president. I represent veterans. I represent civil workers. So I want you guys to understand, under White River Junction, VAMC, we service 75,000 veterans. That's the statistics from June of 2024. 1/3 of that is 25,000 of them are from the New Hampshire state. Those numbers have climbed. I don't have those statistics right now. However, as discussed, the PACT Act has brought more veterans to us, and they are receiving care, quality care, state-of-the-art care they deserve. I stand before you not just in support of the veteran community, but in unwavering support of the dedicated staff of the Department of Veteran Affairs. Those who provide critical health care services, comprehensive benefits, from primary care, specialty medicine, mental health, health education, pharmaceutical cares, and laboratory services, and administrative support. These professions are the backbone of the VA system. Their work ensures that those who have served both our country and receive both the care and benefits they deserve. We are here to remind everyone of a simple truth. We are all essential. We are all essential employees of the Department of Veteran Affairs. The strength of our veterans' healthcare system depends on us, on our dedication, our expertise, on our commitment. We stand together, we stand for the very mission of the Department of Veteran Affairs, to serve and to honor our veterans and their families. But let us not forget our freedoms exist today because of the sacrifices made by our veterans and their loved ones. And we, as VA employees, make sacrifices of our own every day to protect and to provide steadfast quality health care and administrative support to those who served for us. I leave you with a quote from one of my favorite artists, Bob Dylan. I think of a hero as somebody who understands the degree of responsibility that comes with his freedom. Today, let us honor that responsibility and let us stand strong. Let us continue our mission. Thank you. I'd like to introduce you Dave Kenny, a local veteran, so here to my right, and Manchester VAMC Task Force member. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz. I was really impressed that she could read that without her glasses. I know I couldn't. So I decided to put mine on paper this morning. Good morning, everyone. Morning. My name is Dave Kenny. I'm a retired Navy commander, 40 years of naval service. In 2017, I was tapped by then VA Secretary Shulkin and Visit One to serve as the co-chair of the VA Manchester Task Force 2025. This first of its kind committee of civilian experts, doctors, nurses, and veterans were tasked with creating a roadmap to recovery for VA Manchester after a devastating internal flood, creating millions of dollars in damage, substandard medical spaces, and returning the culture of core competency of compassionate care, which is the hallmark of the VA. After 10 months of meetings, information sessions with veterans, surveys, and meeting with community providers, the team formulated a master plan of improvements endorsed by the Special Medical Advisory Group. That plan included a revamped accountability structure, cultural changes, and the facility improvements like the ones you can see right now at the VA Medical Center in Manchester. The latest, of course, being the new women's clinic currently being built right off of the main entrance. Full credit goes to the Manchester leadership, the staff, doctors, nurses, and the clinicians whose hard work and commitment to transforming the VA Manchester from one of the lowest performing in Vision 1 to one of the best in the entire VA system. So here we are, 2025. Incredible progress has been made and continues with the investment of modernized medical spaces, maintaining a welcoming culture for veterans, and a commitment to developing the best medical team to serve our most deserving veteran population. With all this considered, I am vehemently opposed to any maneuver that would essentially slam this momentum in reverse. With dismantling essential infrastructure, arbitrary personnel reductions, cutting investments in innovation, anything that would impede providing the best care possible. While responsible budgets is important, this is not just about budgets. This is about people. I am grateful to the dedicated staff, and most importantly, we want to ensure that the best care possible goes to those who are most deserving, and that's our comrade veterans. And we want to ensure that that staff has everything that they need to provide the best quality care possible. It is now my distinct honor to introduce Ed McCabe, Afghanistan War veteran. Ed?
Thank you. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to speak on these very serious issues, but if you look at how important the PAC Act is, it almost didn't pass. It's because of Senator Hassan's very hard work, and she must have bought some of her father's memory into this fight. She grew up in a combat veterans family, in some of the toughest combat this country's ever fought. And many of our World War II brothers and sisters are not around anymore, but their legacy lives on through the hard work of the people who love them. So what do I mean when the PAC Act didn't almost pass? I want you to see if you can remember a number for a couple of minutes. 47 to 51. This was a proposal to discuss the PAC Act for Vietnam veterans who were poisoned by Agent Orange, Gulf Syndrome veterans who were poisoned by the oil wells, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, including myself, who were poisoned by burn pits. The one I was near, 22 acres it grew to, 22 acres. So one party didn't support the PAC Act, one party fought like hell to get it passed. And you can guess which party. You have a party that will defund research for pediatric cancer. So tell me who they won't touch, okay? Tell me who they won't touch. Anyway, before I say things I shouldn't say, I'm going to end it here and turn the floor back to Senator Hassan.
Thank you. Ed and Dave and all the veterans here, Mike, we are so grateful for your service. So thank you so much for everything you've done to keep us safe and secure and free. I'll now open it up for questions.
What's the timeline for these proposed cuts? A lot of plans have been floated. That doesn't mean they're going to be enacted. So I guess what are you hearing in terms of when something may actually be rolled out, if at all?
Well, what Secretary Collins has confirmed is that the plan is to cut 80,000 personnel, so about 20% of the VA personnel by August. Now, the Veterans Committee has asked the Secretary to come to us and explain what the plan is, why they think this level, this magnitude of cuts won't impact service. I mean, what we're hearing them say is things like direct service providers won't be impacted, but tell me how a doctor or a nurse provides service to a veteran when the person ordering supplies hasn't been there to order supplies, so there isn't anything for them to deliver the care with, right? Or talk to me about how, if you take people away from the reception desk or the appointment phone line, veterans are going to get their appointments and keep their care going in a way that maintains their health optimally. You can't do that without some of these employees that they're talking about cutting. What they have told us is they want to go back to the level of staffing that they saw in 2019, and of course that was before the PACT Act passed. So again, to Senator Shaheen's point, the notion that you can cut 80,000 staff, about 20%, when you are bringing in a very large new cohort of people who need health care or who otherwise qualify for benefits from the Vietnam era forward. It's absurd, and it is troubling at all sorts of levels. So all we've been told is that it will happen by August. I hope we will be able to get more answers. I hope Secretary Collins will come back to the relevant committees in the Senate and in the House and explain how this is going to work. And I hope that he will take the feedback that so many of us who have been working in this area will give him, and particularly the feedback of veterans who actually use the VA.
Let me also just add, the point that you're making is part of the problem.
Right.
And that is, they're creating chaos and uncertainty. And I have talked to people, whether it's the business community, federal employees, people in any industry. It's not just what's being planned in terms of the cuts. It's the uncertainty about how that's going to happen. And for people who are already anxious right now, given the uncertainty in the economy, rising food prices, the tariffs that just went into effect, that added uncertainty creates even more anxiety for people at a time when they don't need it. So I hate to say it, but I think that's the plan. The goal of Elon Musk and Doge is to create as much uncertainty and as much chaos as possible so that people don't know how to respond to it.
How many federal workers, including the VA workers, are in state of New Hampshire, have lost their job already? How many are on the chopping block that you know of? And is there any way to track that, or are you tracking that?
We are trying to track it. There have been some losses of personnel at Manchester and at White River Junction. There's also been some people hired back. So again, to Jean's point, the chaos and confusion here, the emails that go out to probationary employees saying you're fired for performance issues just when some of those people have been promoted, which is why they're probationary, and then some of those orders rescinded, has made this very hard to follow. But if the plan, according to the secretary, is to reduce 80,000, it will certainly impact New Hampshire. We just don't know precisely how much. And to Jean's point, this is part of the problem. There appears to have been no analysis. There is definitely no transparency. For all of us who have managed large organizations before, we know that you need to put together a plan. We know that sometimes you have to make adjustments to staffing and to budgets, but you do that with input from the people who are going to be most affected, both the veterans and the people who serve the veterans at the VA, of course, many of whom are veterans themselves. And you come together with a plan, and that allows people to look to their futures and make adjustments accordingly. But at the end of the day, this is just reckless and arbitrary. They chose a number, they chose a date. They haven't appeared to do any analysis of how it will impact service, and it's shameful.
Sorry.
And then Saturday night, they jammed through a budget that is putting this in law. I mean, it's parts of the same program, but how's that going to land in New Hampshire?
Well, it was the wee hours of Saturday morning,
yeah.
And it's going to have significant effects. What we haven't seen, what they did is put in place this budget resolution, and it's going to be followed by what they call a reconciliation bill. So a bill they're going to be able to pass with only Republican votes. And what they're talking about, we believe, though we haven't seen it, because again, there's no plan, is that it's going to require significant cuts to Medicaid at a time when 13% of people in New Hampshire are on Medicaid for their health care. It's part of the foundation of our Affordable Care Act health plan. We know it's going to mean significant cuts to food programs. We've already seen that as part of the budget resolution. And what's so outrageous about all of this is that they're doing this so that they can continue the tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans. And they're talking about 70% of those tax cuts going to people who are at the top 1% at a time when people are struggling to pay their bills. They're cutting the LIHEAP energy program to help low-income heating assistance for people in New Hampshire who need help with paying their fuel bills. I mean, it's a prescription for disaster on top of the tariffs that are already creating. We've seen the uncertainty that that's creating in not just our markets here, but world markets.
And to add to this, we actually asked the question in the form of amendments on Saturday, either Friday night or Saturday morning, to our colleagues. We said, could we amend this to just say people who are earning over $1 billion a year don't need a tax break? We're not talking about increasing taxes on them, they just don't need a tax break. And they all said no. And so, again, we think about the veterans who are here today, we think about their families. One of the conversations we had in the last week or so was not only with veterans, but with veteran spouses who are being impacted, because of course some veteran spouses, think about a veteran, an active military person who's moving all the time. One woman talked to us about they had moved something like 8 times in 12 years. She, as the spouse, she's a veteran herself, but she had been discharged, honorably discharged, had a service disability. Over time, she found federal employment that she could do remotely, and they had planned on her husband's separation from service with understanding that she'd have this job that she is quite good at, where she services a lot of folks, and now that's being threatened along with whatever benefits and care her husband might need after he separates from service. This is the kind of it's harm and it's cruelty being directed at people who have served this country. Jean talked about the veterans who might have PTSD or need other kind of mental health supports, who need that crisis line that could be impacted here, and to think that they are imposing these kinds of cuts so that they can make the very wealthiest people, who will still be wealthy without a tax break, give them more tax breaks is just unconscionable.
I was wondering if you could characterize the scope of the risk Granite Staters are under from these Trump tariffs.
Well, I was at this made the news, I was at a bakery and dairy last Monday, and I met with somebody he and his brother, was a cardiologist, he and his brother was a PhD scientist. They had started this sugar-free bakery because their mother had diabetes, and they wanted to be able to provide food that she could enjoy despite her diabetes. They've been in business, as I said, for over 25 years. They had 25 employees. They had to lay off all but 2 of them because 85% of their business is with Canada, and Canada canceled all of their orders. So he's not going to be able to stay in business. And that represents business after business that I have heard from, and I know Senator Hassan has heard from, who are affected by these tariffs in ways that are going to dramatically impact their ability to continue to operate their expansion plans. People are talking about laying off employees. I was at C&J Limousine, again, another case that's gotten a lot of attention, where he had planned to buy 7 buses from Canada. He's reduced that to 3, and the cost has increased dramatically, and so the expansion that he was looking at doing has been pulled back for the time being. So it's having significant impact, and not just here in the United States, but across the globe in terms of world markets. And the other issue is uncertainty again. What we're hearing from businesses is that it's not just the tariffs. They don't know what's going on with the tariffs. You know, they're on again, they're off again. Now the president says, well, I'm committed, and I don't care whether people are harmed by these tariffs or not. I think people did not sign up for that when they voted for Donald Trump.
And I will just add, the maple sugaring industry, deeply impacted. Craft breweries, deeply impacted. And here's the other thing. Jean mentioned that tourism are camping reservations in the White Mountains. Canadians have been canceling those reservations. They've been canceling reservations on Hampton Beach. But here's the other thing. Jean mentioned that the administration has effectively shuttered the LIHEAP program, a program that's been in place, I think, since the early 80s. It was a bipartisan program that helps people afford heating fuel for those of us in the Northeast with very cold and long winters, air conditioning or other kinds of cooling for people in the sweltering South, right? This has been a bipartisan program forever. They have shuttered the program, and the tariffs will add a 10% tax to heating fuel for most Granite Staters. So it's not only that you can't get assistance, your heating fuel is now going to be 10% more expensive. So that's just another example of the impact, and another example of a president who really does not put the people of this country first, or are standing in the world first.
Could you comment on the funding cuts to the National Center for PTSD and funding cuts for VA research?
We don't have a lot of details about them yet, but again, We've been engaged in cutting-edge research. The VA certainly focuses on PTSD, and what the VA learns and develops is useful for the civilian population as well, right? So again, it's a real, look, it will impact life-saving care. It will slow down the delivery of life-saving care. And in addition to that, it is an incredible insult to the women and men who have served this country.
Hey, good morning, Senator Shaheen, Senator Hassan, and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Curtis Register. I'm a Marine Corps veteran and a resident in New Hampshire. I'm currently working with around 24 veterans across the country that have been unceremoniously and callously terminated on February 14th. Some of those people, I just want to give you a quick rundown of their stories, if I may. These are just average Americans that have served their country honorably and did not do any wrongdoing before they were terminated from their positions without any plan or forewarned knowledge. They just showed up to work on February 14th to an email and a lockout card saying they were no longer welcome. Thank you for your service, but get out of here. Some of those family members are single moms. Some of those family members have, some of those veterans who served those federal agencies across FEMA, VA, CISA, Department of State, Health and Human Services were terminally ill and going through their own care. And I know one particular family, and it's not just onesies and twosies, one family lost 5 people that were working in the federal agencies, his wife, himself, and 3 cousins. So it's obviously significantly disruptive, disheartening, and impacting their ability to put bread on the table, especially when you are flooding the market with skilled labor in a specific skill set, as well as hiking tariffs. You're making it harder to make ends meet. What would you, I'm asking for inspiration and words of hope that I can convey to these patriots that have sacrificed for their country and love their country, but feel used, betrayed, and tossed aside by them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you accurately reflect what we're hearing from people across New Hampshire and across this country. And Ed said he had to stop because he was getting angry. We have every reason to be angry, Ed. We should all be angry about what's going on because people are being fired when they don't deserve to be. We've done a number of things in the Senate to try and address that. A number of letters to the President, to the Secretary of VA. We have filed, there are several pieces of legislation that would require veterans be rehired. The best progress has been made in the courts, where people have been willing to bring lawsuits into the courts, and the courts have generally ruled in favor of federal employees. And Lizzie or Christine may have additions to that based on what you know is going on with employees.
And if you do, you should feel free to speak about it. I will also just add that I hope you and all the veterans here and around the country know that everywhere I go, Granite Staters, Americans in the airport, talk to me about the fact that what is happening to veterans is unconscionable. The American people stand with all of you, and they are angry, and they are calling for change at the VA too. And so part of what we are able to do is reflect what we're hearing from constituents, put that into our letters, put that into our hearing. In the VA committee, we've had a few officials from the VA to come talk to us about kind of status reports. We've been pushing them really hard to do the rehiring. And in nomination hearings, we have been pushing people that the President is nominating to come into the VA to give us their commitment that they will rehire these people. Sadly, they are also, it appears, frightened of the President or Elon Musk, so they give us these mushy answers. But we are trying to shine a light on it in every way we can. And meanwhile, the courts have been ruling in the favor of federal employees who've been recklessly and arbitrarily terminated. And One of the people I talked to last week at this roundtable we had said he had just been let back in the office. He was a veteran who served in one of the agencies. So I'm hopeful that that will be more of the story. I don't know if you guys want to comment.
I would.
Yeah.
What was your name again?
Curtis, ma'am.
Curtis, Lizzie Harkins, how are you?
Pleasure to meet you, ma'am.
So,
Why don't you come here so the microphone
So
is...
they can pick up what you're saying.
okay, so I just want to point out a couple of things for our brothers and sisters, okay, your patriots, is that we are out here fighting. And I want you to understand some of the things that both senators have stated is that there's chaos and confusion. That is the goal.
That's right.
That is the goal. So we have employees who are scared, right, in the Department of Veteran Affairs. That is you have NCA, VHA, VBA. They fall under, it's all under Department of Veteran Affairs. So we have 3 agencies under one. And there is fear, right? People are talking about, I'm not sticking this out, I'm 40. So now we're losing valuable doctors, valuable nurses, admin staff. I work on VBA. So I understand the PACT Act, right? So I understand what was brought in, what's going out. I know those numbers. So we are bringing in veterans. And as I stated in my statement earlier, 75,000 veterans as of 2024, June of 2024, are going through White River Junction, the VAMC or Medical Center. 25,000 of those are New Hampshire residents. That includes your Littleton, Keene, Seabox, never mind the ones that are covered under Manchester VHA. But I'm going to give you some words of hope. We've been through this, and we made it, right? Now we're going to fight it. They might think they came back smarter, but we came back smarter too, and we're going to fight harder. So know that.
And it's not just Congress and people like Lizzie and Christine. They're fighting. We all need to fight, right? We need to call our radio stations. Talk to not just members of Congress. Talk to your legislator. Call the governor's office. Call the White House. Call your social networks. Let them know that this is not acceptable and we're not going to stand for it.
Right, and I think, you know, one of the other things is we can change, the Congress can change some of this if a few Republicans in both chambers will join us. So for veterans who live in states who are represented by Republican senators, or they live in congressional districts represented by Republicans, we need a handful in each chamber to join with Democrats and do what they know is right.
I mean, only 4 in the Senate.
Could block a lot of things, right? And only, I think it's 5 in the House. That's what it would take. And they need to hear from their constituents in every which way possible.
Thank you.
One or two more questions, anybody?
Do you have any thoughts on Donald Trump coming out last night saying he's mended his relationship with Chris Sununu and they're best friends now?
What I will say is that Donald Trump promised a full-service hospital to Manchester when he was on the campaign trail, and I'm waiting for that commitment to be delivered upon.
And Chris Sununu wasn't fighting for that, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Senator, if you want to say your last word?
Thank you all.
Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.